days. If everyone could start by silencing their cell phones, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, now that everyone's cell phone is silent, we don't have to worry about any ringing during our vendors that Bernard's going to introduce. We get this going. I do want to make a big announcement that our speaker for November, we're not going to be here in October. We're going to be at the Holiday Inn Gate, not the Holiday Inn Gate, so we're going to be at the brand new Elga building on Grand Point Boulevard in Grand Blanc, and we're bringing in the national speaker, Jeffrey Taylor. And he's going to teach everyone how at that thing. It's going to be a 2-hour speaking engagement starting at 6:30. And he's going to teach everybody that night how to help grow their businesses. And so I just want to make everyone aware that we will not be here in November. It's going to be on Grand Point and Grand Blanc, Jeffrey Taylor, national speaker. So please welcome Bernard to our vendor chair as he introduces our first vendor tonight.
Good evening. I think we've got a very seasoned and probably direct crowd that's here today. So I'm going to ask you some candid questions as we prepare to hear from our first vendor. How many people here have been in the business at least 5 years? 10 years. Keep your hands up. 10 years. Some of you are like, you're not putting your hands up until I get to 30. I hear you. 15 years, 20 years. I don't like counting that. 25, 30 years been in the real estate business. All right. I will say this in certain careers when they talk about 30 and out, but real estate, you're still at it. That's what it's supposed to be. How about 35 or more years? I'll stop at 40.
Keep going for him.
Keep going?
For him, yeah.
Keep going. 45. Can I get 45? I'm going to turn some auctioneer here. 45, 45, can I get 45, 45, 50. No, it's very good.
You get Terry or Henry.
50 years. 55. You just want me to keep going. 60, 60, 65, 65. Wow.
He's old as dirt.
You know, I'm doing that just because I think sometimes it's important. We have a handful of guests here today to know that this business, though it has challenges, it's hard, it can be ugly, it can be gritty, but there is a pathway, multiple pathways to make this thing work, make it work long term. And I believe sometimes we all have discovered that the key to making it work long term isn't so much your hustle and your grind, it's having access to the right support team, the right suppliers, the right contractors, the right vendors, and in some cases, the right tax people. The right people to give you not only how to get your taxes done. I'll just break this down briefly as I'm not going to do your job. I'm going to let you come on. Let me not go any further. I want to express my pleasure to introduce Mr. Luther Brown, who is, I do believe, the principal operator. He's in a partnership with the John L. Group. And he'll come up and tell some more, but I think the fundamental thing I want to make sure I understand is that there's ways to make money, and then there's smart ways to maximize your money by not paying more taxes than you should. And that's part of what his company helps people to do. And so without further ado, I'll introduce my friend and distinguished colleague here, Mr. Luther Brown. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I am Luther Brown here on behalf of the John L. Group. The John L. Group is a local business here in the city of Flint. Well, we're in Grand Blanc, but we're located in the city of Flint, downtown, in the legal services at Eastern Michigan building. I do run that organization with 2 of my brothers and my wife. We started the business in 2019, but we had experience outside of that. We just collectively came together one day, had a conversation, and said, hey, we've been working in different fields, we have different levels of education. Why don't we put something together and build something that we can pass on to our children, nieces, nephews, and all that kind of good stuff. And so the primary focus of our business, we are a financial services operation. And then in true transparency, because it is on our website, we also run a trucking division also where we're freight brokers, and we also have an asset-based arm. So the biggest question in your head is, well, how do you manage all of that, right?
was because all of us have individual skill sets. I just mentioned that we collectively came together to start something. So I have a brother who spent a lot of his time in the logistics world. He actually runs that side. My brother Antonio also has a CPA license. He's the principal person that does the accounting. And who am I? I am the operations guy. I'll operate on both sides of the business. I'll support on the logistics side, and I spend a lot of time on the accounting side. So we do, on our professional services side, we do tax preparation, we do tax planning, we do bookkeeping and things like that. I was brought in here to specifically let everybody here know that we exist. Judging by the experience in the room, a lot of you have been doing this a long time, right? So I'm not here to talk about debits and credits and things like that. What I am here to do is offer you an opportunity. If you're not satisfied with the service that you are being rendered at this present moment in time, can we please have a conversation, right? I'm not here to sit there and tell you I can make life a lot better for you, but what I am telling you is I am here to really to have a conversation, find out how we can partner and build something together. We want to make sure that we maximize your time so you can focus on what's important. If you are a landlord and you're running that business, you may have another full-time job as well. So what can I do to help make life easier for you? What reports can I give you on a monthly basis? What can I do to provide you the insight that you need where you can just look at stuff, trust the information that you're given, and make informed decisions? How can we help maximize your tax liabilities, right? I tend to reverse that. How do we minimize your tax liabilities? How do we maximize your tax deductions, right? So just wanted to just put that out there. We are located downtown Flint, and if you want to have a conversation with me, I am easy. You can reach me at any given moment. I'll always welcome the opportunity to sit down with you. I had a great conversation, if you don't mind me using names, with Richard back there, right? When he's been doing this for a long time and gave me some insight about being an owner of multiple properties and some of the things that go along with that. Right? I'm not here to sit there and tell you I'm a whiz and I have all the answers. No, what I'm here to tell you is that we will make sure that we get you everything that you are supposed to get, and if we can find a little more, we will find a little more for you to get it. So with that being said, I do appreciate your time. I am Luther Brown from the John L. Group. You may see me around downtown, but I will tell you I'm highly engaged with the local chamber and some of those events and things like that. I do my best to be around. I will, now that I know about these meetings, you may see me float in here a little more often, right? A lot of this is building relationships. You're not gonna look at me today and be like, well, he's a nice guy. He sounds pretty decent, but I have a good relationship with you. So you will see me here again as I work the room and get to meet you, shake hands, and understand where you are, and make sure you understand the services that we provide and how we can best benefit you. So I don't know if this is okay or not, but if anybody has any questions for me, I'm more than willing to take those questions. I will not get into specific tax questions, but if you have questions about the firm and things like that, I'm more than willing to answer those questions if you have any at this time.
If you're on extension, what do we do?
October 17th. The 17th of October, if you're on extension, is due October 17th. So today is the 10th. So next Monday, by 11:59 p.m., you have to have everything submitted electronically. If not, then it's considered late and has to be mailed in.
Who's still here as a file? I filed Friday, so.
If you have not filed, it is literally 7 days. And if you would like to have a conversation with me about how we can support you, I would say we probably start that conversation today because time is winding up, and I know that it's like quite a few things that probably need to be pulled together to get that done on time and accurately. And one thing we don't want to do is just rush and just throw something together, right? We want to make sure we give you the service that you deserve and that we always advertise that we give.
Luther, what's your phone number that they should reach out to you at?
My direct phone number, my cell phone number is 810-210-9461. Once again, it's 810-210-9461. If you need to email me, you can email me at Luther, Luther, .Brown, BROWN, at THEJOHNL, the letter L, group.com. Luther.Brown at thejohnlgroup.com.
How would you describe the scope
of the size of your clients. And one thing I appreciate about Luther, I have a tax professional. I lease out commercial space. I've got a guy that I lease out commercial space to. He's great at what he does, but frankly, he talks too much. I hear way too much nuance about some of his clients and their names. Like, I don't need you to name drop your people. I'm not supposed to know anything about who your people are. So therefore, I have never allowed him to handle my services. Like, you're my tenant, you're right here, you do good work, but you talk too much. I don't need that. And so one thing I respect and appreciate about Luther and their team, they're very discreet. So even as I ask that, I know you're not going to necessarily name names.
Not at all.
But what could you tell us about the scope?
So the scope of our clients, we support just full scope from young adults just entering their freshman year in college, getting a work study W-2, with file taxes for the very first time, wean off mom and dad, have their own money in their pocket, all the way up to we do support one of the largest vendors here in the city of Flint, and the work that they do around the city. And so I cannot get into specifics. We do believe in discretion, and it's just only fair to you, and it's fair to us, right? You don't come to me for me to tell your business all across the world. And actually, when you work with us, we do have engagement letters that we do ask you to sign, and inside of that engagement letter, we make sure we specifically state we will not share your information with anybody. We've been in tough situations. I mean, by tough situations where a couple was going through divorce, and you know, the divorce is just finalized, but the tax situation based on the documents there, how we had to do it, we had to work with both of them individually, and we still didn't share that information across the table. And they believe me, it was asked, and the answer was like, this is not what we're not here for that. We're here to make sure we take care of you. So we do believe in making sure that your affairs are your affairs, and we don't share that across the organization. And we have licenses, right? Like certified public accountant, at the end of the day, you're in that position, you're supposed to be a trusted member of the community. People can trust you and not lose faith in the work that you do.
So Luther, do you do a lot of rental property? Do you deal with a lot of landlords?
So I wouldn't say we deal with a lot. What I would say is we have experience to support you.
And in your discretion, I'm telling you, being very modest, I think that's part of being an accounting type of space.
Yeah.
I don't typically expect my accountant to have exceptional sales skills. He is like way above the average than most. But in his modesty, for what they may or may not handle in terms of volume of a lot of landlords, I will just say with discretion, there are some property owners that own a lot of property and a large scope of property that they handle, that they serve. And so it may not be a large volume of clients, but it's a large volume of property.
Exactly. So in the for full disclosure, we are young, right? I'm the oldest of the group. I guess I do my age, it don't make a difference. I'm 42. However, our firm has been preparing taxes now for over 20 years. So we've seen a lot. I won't say we've seen everything, but we've seen a lot. We've supported homeowners, we've supported small businesses, and we've supported manufacturing firms before. So our experience kind of runs deep. We've been doing this for quite some time.
So I know there's some people who come to the meetings, like they don't even pay their own mortgage bill. They have their bookkeeper pay all of it. So as part of your accounting stuff, do you offer bookkeeping?
Yes, we do offer it.
Bills?
Yes, we do have the capacity to do that. Now, to answer your question, we've never been asked to do that, but we have the capacity to do that. And as you know, a lot of people take their finances real personal, and when you start letting people pay bills, you kind of open up to some things, and they don't feel that comfortable. Not because we haven't made them, but it's just because I believe that people like to keep their finances close to their desk, right? But we do offer that service if necessary. If we need to set a schedule up, accounts payable schedule where the bills can be paid, that is a service that we can render and make sure we provide in a timely fashion and give you reports in a timely manner. One beautiful thing about working with us is that you won't get things via email. And so you're like, well, how am I supposed to get it? we actually run a secure portal. So you will never upload tax documents, you'll never email me tax documents. We have an SSID secure portal, the most secure portal that you can have. We create your own identification, you create your own login. I do have back-end access. So you just PDF your documents and you upload them, and then from there I grab them off of there to stop you from sending me stuff through your Yahoo or Gmail email accounts where God knows who can hack that and grab that information from you and steal your identity or do some other things that can hurt you personally. So you upload those documents there, we do the work, and then we send you an email and say, hey, your documents are ready for your review, and then you log into your portal, and then you get to see. The portal costs you nothing, right? You don't have to pay an extra fee, extra $10 a month for portal access. It costs you nothing. That's just part of the service that we provide, and we make sure that's available to everybody.
And I think, like, some people are like, oh, there's a portal, it's another login I need. So some people would look at it like almost as a negative. But you guys need to realize how much fraud is going on to the point where when we're in a real estate transaction, people are intercepting closing packages as they're coming across as part of the closing package. One page of the closing package is the wiring instructions. Changing the bank account and routing numbers on the wiring instructions, sending it through just like it looks like it came from the title company. And now you wired 200 grand to the wrong bank account and the money's gone. So like, we feel secure because no one sent emails from our email, but they're getting into these things and they're being intercepted. So like, his portal, even though it's another login that you got to keep track of, has more value than what he could even tell you.
Exactly.
Like, it's real life. I've seen it happen.
So, Ed, I'm going to add, because of my background, so anytime you're dealing with a professional who says, send me your personal information, just send it by email, you should stop right there and reevaluate who you're working with.
Absolutely.
Because they're not protecting you. You, unfortunately, you have to be aware of this stuff. Because everything Ed just said, that's happening every day.
Absolutely. Thank you for your insight, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I applied the employee retention thing from IRS beginning of the year. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, the employee retention tax credit, ERTC.
But here it is, we're going into October, November, December, and I haven't received that back. I was wondering if your clients were seeing any of that money.
So I won't. So what I would say is this: those who have applied for it, we were able to get it back. I mean, every situation is a little different, so I really don't know because I haven't worked with you.
No, I'm asking if your clients have received it or they're still waiting like I am.
No, the companies that I know that we've got for, because Antonio does some and I do the other, and so I don't ask him who's getting what. Our concern is, okay, they uploaded the documents, who's gonna take it and get it to completion? And so the ones that I've been able to work with, that's not been an issue for them.
I guess my question is, I thought I would have it by now, 8, 10 months into the year. Is that unusual for me to be waiting?
And so what I can say is sometimes things get jammed up with the IRS and it can take a little bit of time. I don't really know, like your taxes were electronically filed?
Yeah, they're electronically filed. But I remember sending it off myself in December or January, put it in the mail to IRS. But I just normally would expect something from like that. It's free money basically, but
Right.
I expected to have it back by halfway through the year, June or July,
So have you logged onto the IRS website to get?
I have not.
Okay, so typically when that kind of stuff happens, you can log onto the IRS website and type in your information, and they should have some kind of status report on there. Typically that's what they do, they offer that. So the IRS.gov.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's interesting you mentioned this piece right here. I'll be candid. An experience I've had, my first CPA was referred to me because I had no idea what I was doing. And maybe if you could speak towards this, there's a difference between TurboTax yourself, H&R Block on Bristol Road, a tax preparer who, I think my first tax preparer was me. Then my tax preparer was my wife's mom's friend. Like, okay, just do it for me. Versus a CPA. To what extent can you help us understand? Because some of us, until somebody shows you that there's something different or why I need that something different.
So typically, what you got on CPA is you have somebody who actually works in that field. That's a discipline for them, right? They don't just pass those licenses out. Like, it's a rigor to that. Like, you got to study, you got to pass 4 exams, and you got to qualify for it, right? That's one thing. So you have somebody who actually, they put their life into this field. This is what they do on a daily basis. They actually care for it. They love what they do. I'm not trying to knock anybody. I'm not saying they don't love it, but it's just another level when you go get your CPA license. And then another benefit that you get out of working with any CPA, many of you may know this, but if you just have a regular person at H&R Block that does your taxes, that person cannot represent that tax return if it gets flagged by the IRS, right? So the IRS flags that tax return, you actually have to pay an additional fee to work with H&R Block. How do I know this? Because we benchmark, right? We kind of look at our competition, see what's going on, see the services they're offering, look at what we're offering, how do we find ourselves being compatible, and how do we compete in this market? So that's how I know this is benchmarking. But in order for them to represent you, you have to pay an additional fee. Then they turn that tax return over to a CPA that they have on staff, that they contracted with, rather, to review it. The problem is that CPA didn't do it. So they're actually going to be scanning that document, looking at somebody else's work. Where in our office, we have to sign everything that goes out of there. Antonio has to review everything that goes out of that office. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, everything has to have his name on it, it has to be signed, it has to be filed. And so I bring that up because a regular like tax preparer, they said they can't represent you in court. You get flagged, have to go to court. They will not listen to that person at all. And that person tells you that, you can Google it yourself. That is false. You have to either be an enrolled agent or a CPA. If you're not one of them, you cannot be represented by that person in the court of law.
Part of what I heard as you described that, I don't know if some of you, I had a situation, unfortunately, earlier this year, thought we were doing the right thing. I hired a general contractor who hired a furnace guy. Furnace guy showed the GC his license for HVAC. He put the stuff in the house. City came out to inspect, and they said, we're not signing off on this because you're only licensed to install. That guy apparently was not licensed, though he represented, though he was, to do duct work and some other things. They would not process it. So, unfortunately, you know what we had to do? I had to go find somebody else who was properly licensed to pull the permit properly and get it done right. And nobody, hardly nobody, wants to put their license on the line for somebody else's work. So guess what we ended up having to do? You better believe it. We had to take it out and let this properly licensed person do it right the first time. We thought we were, yeah, I know. We thought we were doing it right. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes taxes, if you're not careful, can be that way. You've hired someone who probably represented themselves to the best of their capacity until you hit a level of regulation or requirement that they're not able to satisfy, and then you're in a frenzy because you're trying to find somebody who is properly licensed, who you wish you would have hired in the first place to keep you out of that trouble in the first place. In our case, that house sat empty an extra 4 months while walking through that process, and that cost us a lot of cash money. I'm mentioning that because that's the difference between going straight to a CPA the first time. Many of you, you've been there, done that, but for some, you don't know until you have a hard situation like that, and then you wish you knew.
Yeah, old school phrase, right? That's a bought lesson, unfortunately. They call it, so we want to try to keep everybody here out of what they call bought lessons as much as possible.
You're working for us, not the government. If you're trying to save us all
for the
money.
government.
Yeah, but you're trying to work for us to save
Yes.
us money, not
Absolutely.
to make government money.
Absolutely. It's a phrase, there's a quote from a judge I read. I don't remember the judge's name, but I do remember the quote where in court, a a person was being represented by a CPA, and the judge's end ruling was a person is not obligated to pay more than they have to in taxes. And the judge dismissed it and let the client walk out. Basically, the government understands that you only have to pay what you can pay. If you can itemize, if you can recognize and understand your tax liability and reduce that the right way, and it can't be refuted, it cannot come behind you just because they like, well, we think he should or she should. No, you're not obligated to pay the government more than what you have to in taxes. And that's our job, is to make sure that you don't pay more than what you're supposed to pay, right? Keep that money, give it to the kids, grandkids, donate it to local charity, wherever it is you want to do it. It's your prerogative, but our job is to make sure that we support you in your future endeavors.
Would you give your phone number one more time, please?
Yes, my phone number is 810-210-9461. If I'm not able to answer, please leave a voicemail. Please do. I know sometimes that doesn't happen. Please leave a voicemail if I'm not able to answer. Typically I answer all the time, but there are times we are busy. You can leave a voicemail. That makes it a lot easier to make sure we reach back out and get in contact with you. And even if you don't take my number and you see me around, walk up to me, just have a conversation. I like to get to know you, right? You see me out here hanging out, don't say, oh, he's with the family, I want to bother you. Please come up and bother me. I enjoy the interaction and conversation with people.
Any other questions here?
Address.
Address. My business address is 436 South Saginaw Street, Suite 300, Flint, Michigan, 48502. Located in this can help you out even more. We're located inside the Legal Services of Eastern Michigan building. And if you go downtown, I can help out even more. If you look downtown, if you look up in that building, you'll see these windows that are blacked out. And it says the John L. Group going across those windows. Right across the street from the flat lot where they have back to bricks. You look right up there, I promise you, look up, you'll see blacked out windows that says the John L. Group. We did that as a marquee sign so people know where we are. But the Legal Services of Eastern Michigan, the address is 436 South Saginaw Street, Suite 300, Flint, Michigan, 48502.
And your email?
My email is luther.brown@thejohnlgroup.com.
Fun fact here, I think I first met Luther as a result of the GLA. So, who was your father-in-law?
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, so I want everybody to know that he's doing the name job. I didn't find out doing this. But my father-in-law is Miles Carl.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
As I'm married to his daughter, Melissa.
And Miles is the godfather of the Landlord Association. Henry Terry,
Yeah.
founding father.
So I'll just say this, it's awesome to see, and I think it's important as the GLA, intergenerational leadership. The last, I think, statement I'll make right now in this regards. For what it's worth, I'll say this, and I appreciate what you said. People don't typically just willy-nilly, oh, I'm gonna get a new CPA just because somebody showed up. But I don't know about you, I almost, every 3 years, I start looking at my CPA with a different lens. Particularly, I've had too many cases where I thought I was hiring the seasoned person, which is great, but I've had 3 CPAs over 15 years retire on me. And so I'm at a stage where it's like, how about I embrace the seasoned experience of 20 plus years and the fact that you're probably going to be at this for the next 20 plus years so that I don't have to keep switching. I've had 3 retire in the last 15 years, and so no taking.
Outside of the unfortunate cause of us leaving this earth to go to our second home, we'll be doing this for a while. Antonio and I, we both have 4 children. I think his youngest is 11 and my youngest is 6. And so I have a long time before, we both have a long time before we can think about walking away. We have children that we got to continue to raise and try to provide for. So.
There you go.
Yes or no?
I got 2 questions. So what things do you see individuals with property miss in their taxes? And then also the second question is, Have you ever done a 1031 exchange? I heard it was really complicated.
We do have experience doing 1031 exchange, and typically what I see with just individuals, period, they don't have everything recorded. Yes, properties. I'm just talking about just overall, not just the property. Everything isn't recorded, right? Like, one thing that I want to make sure we're clear about is that I don't know what I don't know. So we can come in and we can find all the deductions that we got to find, but if you have some other work done that you're missing receipts, you're not properly recorded, or you put some things away in a shoebox over here and forgot that shoebox exists or something like that. So the biggest thing is what we only see is that we don't have true transparency for all the transactions that happen. If we have that, then we have everything else that we need.
And so with the 1031 exchange, you have to have the property that you're going to purchase before you close on the first property in order to use the 1031 exchange?
So for a 1031 exchange, you said you gotta have the property, say it again?
So you have to have so before you close on the property that you're selling, do you have to have the second property that you're purchasing in order to execute the 1031 exchange?
That's my understanding of it, yes.
No. So you have so many days after you close to identify the property. But when you sell your property, you need to know that you're doing a 1031 exchange the day you close.
You have to set it up a certain way so that the proceeds, it's almost like, I'm using loose terminology here, but it's almost like if you put funds in an IRA and you take it out personal as a distribution, they're gonna tax you on it.
Right.
But if you're doing a transfer from one account to another account, even if there's a delay, even if they send you the check, you don't cash it and you send it over, then I don't want to be super deep. Used to tax person.
There's firms out there that just do 1031s because they're very convoluted and very complicated. So I'm not trying to take anything away. He wears 1,000 hats, and the 1031 exchange hat may not be the right hat.
Right.
Just because there's 1031 exchange CPAs, that's all they do. Every day in, day out.
I heard it was very complicated, but I never really heard anybody explain why.
It's complicated.
It's a,
So,
Yes, sir.
trying to amend my taxes from 2018. So, is it taking about a year to amend since they're so long?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you amend taxes, right, you end up, because you're outside the following year, what you end up doing, you have to mail it in.
Yep.
And so when you mail it in, you're at the mercy of the IRS.
She said about a year, so
Yeah, it can be up to a year, absolutely.
my next question is, I just sold a house 2 days ago. They said if you live in it more than 2 years, you don't have to pay any kind of taxes on it. They said,
Your personal residence?
yeah,
Okay.
yep, it's all tax capital gains all there.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for your time. You will see me again. Bernard, I appreciate you for opening up the door for me to come and meet the fine people of the GLA. And Ed is hilarious. I will tell you what he told me when I first met him, but this dude was funny.
Some people never believe the things that come out of my mouth. And I think I might have shocked him. He was yeah. All right, so the next part of our meeting is going to be Q&A, and we're going to have Henry, one of the godfathers of the organization along with Terry, but we're going to have Henry help run this Q&A section. So I hope you guys brought some good questions that you're willing to ask him. So please help me welcome Henry Tambo.
No. But you know what?
We love you.
I really expected to talk about this petition, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Aaron called me up the other day and asked me if I would talk about this petition. And I'll be honest with you, it's a brainchild of someone else, a fellow by the name of Carter Wagner. And I've known Carter a long time. He's a landlord like we are. But he's like a savant. I mean, he gets off on one subject and you never can bring him back. And what he's best at is legal. and he could out-talk an attorney. He's just that kind of guy. He, in I think 2018, went to federal court and had the City of Flint ordinance ruled unconstitutional. And consequently, we didn't have an inspection for 3 years. So the guy knows what he's talking about. There are people who talk a lot and don't know what they're talking about. But when he says something to me, it's usually pretty good information. And and I probably shouldn't talk entirely on it, but I'm not the expert he is. But he's of the opinion that only the Supreme Court can remove a judge, that the Judicial Tenure Commission can recommend things, and they can do some things within the training and that type of thing. But it actually takes an act of the Supreme Court to remove a judge. Very powerful position. You can't recall a judge like you can an average politician. And so he created this petition. You should have it all on your table, or got it when you come in or something. But I read it, and I said to him, I said, you couldn't sign and send this petition. It's just too vague. And it is very vague. It quotes the bar rules or the court rules. And he said, let me go to your meeting and talk about it. He said, I'd like to dig up some specific cases where under that rule, we could forward the case along with the petition. And I said, that'd be fine. I mentioned to the board that he'd like to speak. And he called me up, and again, he's a strange fellow. He begged out at the last moment. But I think it's important enough to look at this. I think that you should know what to expect when you walk in a courtroom. And this courtroom and that courtroom may not be exactly alike, but they ought to be similar enough that you prepare properly and you walk out with the proper results. And I don't think we're getting that across the board in the city of Flint, nor do I think we know what to expect across the board in courtroom number 1. I had a small claims action, which wound up in his courtroom, and I went to Judge Judy every day, and in a half hour, she can do 2 cases. This one went on for 10 months. Never had a hearing until the 10th month. So, there are things in the city of Flint which are, 1, not normal, and 2, not good for the people in this room, or maybe the people who aren't in this room. But we're at the mercy of this fellow. He keeps getting reelected. He's a good politician. He kiss babies and remember names, I guess. But he's just not good at what he does. I don't know whether he's a good attorney or not. I just know that he's a bad judge. And we ran a campaign against him a while back, unsuccessfully. Because most people don't know the judges on the court. Whether it says incumbent or judge on him. Excuse me, something to identify him with. But that little notation will get most people elected, because again, nobody knows the judges. And it's one of those things where either you don't vote for anybody, you plunk the guy whose name sounds the best, or the guy that's already said his judge attached to it. And I was sitting there debating whether I wanted to read through all these categories. You can tell I got a little cold. Or just say to you to look at them, and if you have a case that you think we should be aware of, that you give me a call or Linda a call in the office. We want the case numbers to fill in this petition to make it worth the Supreme Court's attention. I'll give you just an example. The first one is part of this canon number 2. A judge should avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety in all actions. And public confidence in the judiciary is eroded by irresponsible or improper conduct by a judge. A judge must avoid all impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. And that's a canon. Now he says, this is Carter Lang, not me. Judge Merrill evidences extreme prejudice against any landlord who appears before him. He constantly, frivolously adjourns cases, has delayed the eviction proceedings. He gives legal advice to tenants and advises them of every way to delay the proceedings. He finds an excuse, legal or illegal, to dismiss eviction cases. Now, you may or may not feel that he's right on target with that, but my experience is that that's an appropriate statement somebody could make who has some experience in this courtroom, in this particular courtroom. If you had a situation like that, we'd like to know the case number, and ultimately, we'll put them together in a packet. It's worth our time and your effort to try and remove this judge. I mean, we've been unable in the last 12 years to do such, and this may be just another futile attempt. Does anybody have any questions about that? Did I explain the situation well?
So what Henry's
Do I get an
saying,
A or something, you know?
What Henry's saying is that you've had issues with Judge Merrill, which I'm sure a lot of people in this room have, unless you've been using attorneys who've been recused, which you've probably been using attorneys that have been recused until more recently. But in the past, if you've had issues with Judge Merrill, you can get us and you can document what the issues you had were and get us the case number. We need cases like this for the evidence to bring a petition or bring a lawsuit against him. If we don't, we can't just say we have these issues and then have no evidence. So that's, Henry's here looking for people to step forward with evidence.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but once we have the case number, can't we get the court records that will show?
I don't think we even need to do that. I think just the case numbers, I mean, you can send them to
Somebody else
we
will
can send them to
review
Lansing with this petition, and they can pull them up on a computer just as the same as the local courts could pull them up on a computer.
Okay.
But we need the case numbers or the experience. A letter to back this up saying I was in court and my tenant said he was going to sign a consent judgment, and the judge talked him out of it in the next 3 or 4 minutes, you know.
And told him he needed to go get help from somebody else. Or,
Yeah, I mean, just an interference in an inappropriate way for an arbiter. He's not representing the tenant, and he shouldn't overstep his bounds. Yes, sir.
How recent should cases be? Go back a year, 2, 10?
Well, I don't know an answer to that, but if you have a case with that particular judge, and we'd like to see it, and we'll, let them determine whether it's stale or not. I mean, I think if a guy did something strange in 2015 and something strange in 2016 and then again in 17, I think that's better evidence than just one case in one of those years, So, we had in Genesee County maybe 10 or 15 attorneys that I know of who got recused from courtroom number 1. And they were recused because they filed for it in circuit court, and the circuit court judge approved it, and consequently it was based on some reason, could be various reasons. And all those recusals were pulled in by the court, for the circuit court, July 1st. That's really unheard of. I mean, in most districts, you're recused from a judge because he can't be fair, you ran against him in an election for whatever reason. Nobody would ever pull that in. If he didn't like you in 2017, probably didn't like you in 2020, But they did that, and I'm told that they did that because there were so many people avoiding Maribel's courtroom that the other judges felt overworked. And, but it's not fair to us. We should be able to avoid that courtroom just because it's not fair and we can't get a fair hearing. And I think those are two very important words. I mean, why would we want to go to a hanging judge and you can go to a normal judge, And I see this case as almost like a hanging judge where you're going to walk in there and you're not going to walk out like you would have any other courtroom. my 2 cents. I think we'd like to get as much as you can, or if you know somebody else who felt they were done wrong, you know, this might be an opportunity for us to get some redress, or maybe just another futile attempt, you know. So. Yes.
How would you like for people to go forward with submitting those accounts to you?
Well, I would suggest they either call Linda in the office or call me, you know, and we'll funnel those in some direction, you know. I mean, I'd like to get 100, not 1 or 2, you know, so that may be impossible. You know, as aggrieved as I feel, a lot of attorneys feel more aggrieved than we do. I mean, here you are, a member of the bar, or an officer of the court, you've studied long and hard to become an attorney, and you walk into this man's courtroom and you're belittled. I mean, we have comrades in arms on this, but we're just trying to put it together if we can. Might not be able to. You know, a lot of these things are harder than should be. You know, and we'll give it a shot. Yes.
Kathy Main, she sees who she's gonna draw, and then she'll see how she's gonna file.
Well, that's really illegal.
But she does, and if she draws
Right,
that
video.
But the truth is that you're not allowed to shop your judge. That's illegal.
I didn't know that. Sorry, camera.
You know, I have a thought, and we can follow up on this, Ed and Amanda. I would wonder if there's the possibility to create a Google Sheet with a link that goes out via email, where if someone has had an incident, it's almost like an online survey. You can put your case number, this is what happened, this is the scenario, and it'll automatically funnel it into a spreadsheet to hopefully build that type of database that you're looking for. So we'll follow up and see how well we can get that set up.
On a normal week, the office funnels over to the court case, you know, where members have problems that they want an answer for. I usually try and answer as I can. And I would tell you that more than half of those calls are always about the courts or the eviction process. That, you know, we're not talking about an isolated incident that doesn't affect many of us. This really does affect most of us on a long-term basis. It's not something that you can just avoid. And we're only trying to get a call to arms is all we're really looking for here.
I think part of what he's talking about, we all need to realize is it isn't just hurt the landlords. There are businesses that don't want to come to the thing because they heard about this. Because nobody gets a fair shake in his court.
Well, and I would expound on that a little bit. I talk to people regularly who go through an experience in Maribel's court, or even some of the other courts in the city of Flint, who virtually tell me at the end of the conversation that they wouldn't buy another house in the city of Flint. So it's not good for an economic, situation. Also, a lot of attorneys refuse to come up here and appear in a courtroom, not because, of anything other than they don't want to be insulted by this gentleman on the bench, And I'm talking to enough attorneys who stay away from, the 68th District Court. And, I can tell you, it's not good for the Chamber of Commerce either, it's not good for anybody. What do you think, Ed?
Thank you.
All right, so on our agenda, we did have a quick Q&A, and before we get into Q&A, please, while I'm talking, try and think of some questions that we can keep a conversation going, but, not mad. But who brought these wholesale deals? Okay, cool. What's your name? Jordan. All right, cool. So, are you a member?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So Jordan here is a member. I look forward to meeting you after the meeting. And he brought some wholesale deals here. Looks like 4 houses. Now, one of the questions is when you get emails from these wholesalers, and one of the questions is, why would I pay the seller's closing costs? And it's a pretty simple thing because sellers are just people. And people do not do real estate every day. And they don't know how much closing costs are. So when he's negotiating a deal with someone, so 305 Henry Street, for example, he probably has this house under contract for 15 grand. He's trying to wholesale it off for 20 to make a $5,000 assignment fee. Kudos. Plus buyer's closing costs, or buyer pays closing costs. When he negotiated that deal with the seller, he negotiated with the seller that they're walking out of closing with a check for 15 grand, not 15 grand minus $700 for title insurance and a $300 closing fee and $400 in transfer tax. They're too dumb to know what all those little fees are. Yeah, I'm talking about people, they are dumb. So, I'm not talking about specific attorneys. Okay, so so that's why they do that. So don't get, when the first time I saw this, I'm like, I'm not paying their closing costs. I close 70 deals a year, and no buyer ever pays the seller's closing costs. This is BS. I'm not doing it. Don't get your feathers all ruffled up because of the way the deal came over. It's just the way that they structure it, because in order for them to get the deal that they had to structure it that way. So over $1,200 in BS fees of the sellers that you need to pay, don't get all upset about it. That's why they're doing it. All right, so I went on a tangent about wholesalers, kind of backing them up.
You can do a quick claim deed too when you do them too, and just have the title search too. You can do quick claim deeds. You don't have to pay for the title search or the title insurance.
But over a few $100s when you spend 20 grand, come on.
I'll do the title search to see if there's any count. No, I won't do it.
Save a nickel.
Nope,
Save a nickel.
I'll say $500 because they double dip you on
Save a
insurance.
nickel.
They double dip you on insurance.
Only if they only double dip you on insurance if you get a mortgage.
Yeah. No, I'm selling the house right now. They charge me the title insurance, and the buyer has to pay.
Yes, because you insure the buyer.
Yep.
The buyer insures the lender.
That's
all these are going to be cash. There's only one title for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm not
All right. So now that we went through that, does anybody have any other specific questions in regards to real estate? Allison, you have any questions today? You guys are a tough bunch. And I do appreciate Jordan coming and bringing deals. And this is something that I have not seen a lot of, bringing deals to the meeting. And I'm grateful that he did that. So don't ever feel out of place that you like to come here and promote the deals that you have. If you have houses that you want to sell, print them out, bring them. If you can bring them with pictures, even better. I recommend Canva. It's free. You can make a flyer that looks a hell of a lot better than this. All right. I had a deal that I ran into the other day. It seems like you guys are not going to ask me questions. I'm just going to talk. And this deal really, it's came to surface twice. It's the same house, the same issues. About 4 years ago, I was selling this house up in Durand, and this real estate broker, who is difficult to deal with, bought this house on a creative lease option from the seller who was getting ready to lose it. And so he got a quick claim deed from that person that he got a lease option on. And then he resold this house on land contract to a client of mine. Well, he got a quick claim deed, which is great. Okay, you got a deed, now you have the power to deed it to this person. But we ran into an issue of him trying to track down the old seller because it still had a mortgage on it in the old seller's name. And the person sold it to on land contract, made that payment every month, along with another $100 payment to the other person, and it all worked out for a long time until the person that was renting the house wanted to buy it. And you run into that issue when they want to buy it because there's something called a mortgage authorization payoff form. How do you get a mortgage authorization payoff form without the seller's signature and the seller's social security number? And the short answer is, you can't. So we have someone that wants to, so it killed the deal back then to the point where that buyer, in the process of buying it, destroyed his credit. We ended up renting the house And back then he was buying it for $55,000. It worked out great for my investor because we just sold it to him for $120,000. But it took him, he never, in 6 months trying to close the deal last time, never could track down the seller. This time around, he finally did track down the seller and get a mortgage authorization payoff form signed by that seller. But the problem is now that seller sees that we're selling this house for 120 grand, and now they want some money. Because back then, he got a quick claim deed and gave her $500 to go away and caught the mortgage out. So if you're ever in a situation like that where it's creative and you're taking over someone's payments informally, you're just paying them because not many banks actually call you when you're doing sale clause, make sure you get 2 documents signed, a mortgage authorization payoff and a power of attorney for that house. And you have another one?
Well, I do have another one.
Okay, what's the other one?
Well, I was going to tell Scott that last year or the year before, we were managing a house that was originally sold on a land contract. The fellow wasn't making his payments, and so the seller who lived in Texas hired an attorney up here to foreclose or forfeit on the land contract. The land contract purchaser says, no need to do that. And he goes over to the attorney's office and he signs a quitclaim deed. All's well and good, as Scott was just mentioning. A year later, they wanted to sell the house. They got a buyer for the house. And they went to closing, they did the title work, and it turns out that original buyer who signed the quitclaim deed had been in a car accident and was sued for $200,000. And so there was a $200,000 lien that was not cleared by a quitclaim deed. It would have been cleared if the attorney had gone through with a forfeiture, but it wasn't. There was no court action, and so the sale couldn't go through. In fact, we wound up clearing it, but it took another year, and so that sale was lost. So you have to be very careful without title work and with quitclaim deeds, because sometimes they're not the answer to your question.
But you pay for title insurance, they do the diligence 30 years back. I'm having a house right now, it's back from 30 years.
That's a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah.
So the thing I'm talking about is, so the reason, go ahead.
I was buying a house one day, and I agree with what has been said just now. Title company gives insurance. At title company, there are a lot of employees that do make mistakes. They could run your checkup for $200, and they could make mistake. I bought recently a home through auction, and on the same day when my sale was done, and I won in fair square, and on the same day, the city received actually another lien on the property, okay? Because exactly on the same day, the property was under redemption period. Exactly on the same day, the prior owner was able to exercise his right for redemption, or within redemption period, to sell it. So another investment company here in Grand Blanc bought the same property that I did in Swartz Creek. We ended up negotiating for a while. If my title company will not hold up my money at their account and will not get involved, I will be at a loss.
Yeah.
Not a big loss on my fee. It's not like I lost the house price or anything like this, but I will be at a loss of approximately $7,000. So that was my initial kind of deposit, so to speak. But I agree that they make mistakes, and things happening right on the same day.
Yeah.
So I'm just agreeing.
Yeah, same day is true.
Sorry.
All right. So back to the story. The reason I even brought this up is because prices are coming down. Let's say right now they're, depending on the market and the state, they're probably down about 10%. As prices come down, people that bought in the last 24 months are no longer going to have the equity and the ability to sell. So this is a deal that happened back when people had negative equity. So if prices continue to come down, people are going to continue to have negative equity. In these weird deals where people are upside down on a mortgage that they shouldn't, like they pay their bills on time, but they're still upside down, but they need to move to Texas, they're going to come up more regularly. And these people have mortgages on these houses. Sometimes they're FHA loans, RD loans, VA loans. They great interest rates at 3.5%, but they can't sell their house. They're upside down. But their payment's $1,000 a month in Fenton, and you can rent that house for $1,500 a month. So you don't care that you have negative equity because they will give you the house. They will give it to you. They'll keep the mortgage in their name. And this is the situation I'm talking about. So many people are like, okay, I can get this house, they'll keep the mortgage in their name. What do? Make sure you get a quitclaim deed and you get a power of attorney for as many years as you possibly can. And I did this in a house in Durand. I got a quitclaim deed and a power of attorney. I sold the house. They were 4 months behind. I sent the bank a check for $2,500. The payments were cheap. I caught it up. I fixed the house up. I flipped it and I sold it. Well, in the process of all this, I changed the bank address, the address of where the payments came, so they just came directly to my office. Well, we closed on the deal and I get a surprise check in the mail. It's the escrow closing check. There was $278 left in the escrow account. But it's not made payable to me. It's made payable to John Doe. I'm like, how do I cash a check made payable to John Doe? Well, I went to my bank with a check for John Doe, and I went to the bank with my power of attorney. And I signed the bank, Ed Constable, POA on behalf of John Doe, and they deposited that guy's escrow account check into my account. So if you guys are ever doing these creative deals, and there's going to be more of them coming as people become negative equity, please just make sure you have a power of attorney and a quitclaim deed, not just a quitclaim deed, because you're going to run into issues, not only with the escrow check, but that mortgage authorization payoff form. So, anybody else have any other random questions?
So what's the best way to protect yourself when you're purchasing a home through auction, like the sheriff's sale?
Through sheriff's sale?
Yeah.
Well, there's 6 months redemption.
Right.
And so I would say the best thing to do to protect yourself is 2 things. And this is how you buy them cheaper too. So if you're buying on a sheriff's sale, you need to try and get a hold of the person who has the deed now and get a quitclaim deed and a power of attorney signed prior to the time it goes to sheriff's sale. If you can get a hold of that seller and get the quitclaim deed and power of attorney signed prior to going to sheriff's sale, when you will have no other bidders at sheriff's sale, because all you have to do is show up to sheriff's sale to bid and say, hey, I have a deed on this property, just so you guys know. If you buy it, that's great, I can work on your money, but it's being redeemed. So you will get that house at sheriff's sale for opening bid plus $1, because no one wants to bid at sheriff's sale to only collect the 5% interest that they would get on whatever the mortgage note is. That's the rate you can collect. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, say they won't sell you the house and you want redemption. Are you a realtor?
No.
All right. So if you have a realtor, you can just use any realtor's listing agreement to get him pre-sign one and get a listing agreement. If you show up to sheriff's sale with a listing agreement for the property, that's another indication that the property is going to be redeemed, and you can stop bids that way also, because if you're going to list the property to sell the equity out, no one's going to bid it up plus opening bid, because who wants to make a few % on the money?
But prior to that, did you do like a title search?
Yes, title search. I recommend Liberty Title.
So,
Grand Line.
well, I think I called them. I think, do you do a full title search? Or is
I call it pre-title. Say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this property. Can you order me some pre-title, just so I know what's going on here?
Okay, and Liberty will do that.
Liberty will do it. 810-357-0759.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don't go to Dream. Don't go to Dream.
No, yeah.
Do not go to Dream.
Yeah. Liberty's the only one. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. It's been a beautiful night. Please do not forget Jeffrey Taylor on November 14th, Grand Point Boulevard, Elk Credit Union. We got 50-50. All right. I'm going to drop some because I can't remember. 6224. I think this might be my ticket. 6224. I didn't buy tickets, so. All right, we got a winner. All right, is there any guests in the room tonight? Is there any guests here? No guests willing to stand up? Well, for all you members that may not be real members, thank you for coming, and you guys have a blessed night.